Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's time for Tryhard Tuesday. A deck that I've been, working on regularly throughout the last, 6 months or so is the Dimir Tempo deck. So last week I worked a lot on Grixis. That's currently my favorite, but with this deck putting up better results the last week, I thought it was time to revisit this deck. So we all know why I love this deck. The Days, Force, Thoughtseize, Wasteland. Very generic cards that are going to do well against a big slew of decks. Brazen Borrower, Night's Shenanigans, 4 Bowmasters because the format's very blue. Nethergoyf, Sticky Threat, Annoying. Tameo, Snowball that has to get killed. All the cantrips of consistency, cheapest removal, staple mana base, supporting the basics, Murktide on top. All of that is proven, right? But I think it's now time to get back to the Nihil Spellbombs in the main deck. So I will usually run Mishra's Bauble in the slot, so for me, it was kind of an easy swap. I think it's time between Reanimator doing well, Oops doing well, and Nihil Spellbomb actually being good in every Nethergoyf Murktide matchup as well. So yeah, now it's time to play that card in the main deck, which will also free up some sideboard slots. So speaking of that, let's look at the sideboard here. Negation against Broken, Harbinger against Greed and Ursa Saga, Cages to go up to 4 hate pieces against, Oops, Reanimator, etc. Also good against Greens and Zenith decks. Explosives as some, Chalice of the Void to removal mainly, and then maybe you can get lucky against some, Constructs or 0-drops. Hydros for Red Prison, Red Tempo, Sneak Attack. Consign still a viable card, despite Eldrazi falling off the map. You can play against random decks like Mystic Forge, Painter, can help you against Death and Taxes. Barragoyf, to go slightly bigger post sideboard where you're trimming your counterspells a lot of the time. It's just a very reliable haymaker. And then a removal split to round it off here. So Sheldred's Edict shines obviously against Big Murktide, where it can be a bit unreliable. But it can kill it flip Tameo, which is like the #1 reason. It's a live card against control. It's just a very flexible card here when you have to, get rid of your pushes or whatever the case may be. Bit of Triumph, much of the same. I just don't want any more life loss. But yeah, the flexibility of killing a Murktide, killing a flip Tameo, and just being a 2-mana removal spell while being live against Teferi, Narset, etc. I think that's going to be valuable. And then a Dismember for when I need another 1-mana removal spell that kills most things. This could be something like Magus of the Moon, especially shines against mono red, right? Kills Painter, kills Tameo, so that card is just going to be fine across the board. So we do get a little bit of a luxury slots in the sideboard because we spend 2 Mayday slots on the spell bombs, and I like that a lot in theory. So I also have completed a guide over on my Metafy for this deck that you can purchase for $5. Or you can go and become a member for $10 and get access to everything. So if that's anything you want to be looking into, head over there and yeah, get going. Of course, I also have my tournaments with the Eco Cup 3.0 coming up. Sign up starting tomorrow. New members get priority, so there's a little bit of a boon there as well. Well, enough about that. Let's try hard and win some matches. Okay, round 1 here. I'm playing Dimir Tempo. I'm on the draw here with a hand where most likely Push and Nihil Spellbomb are not going to be good against the same deck, but I still think it's good enough here. Something that I should have noticed during the deck tag was the main reason to play this deck is the better mana base. Obviously, you don't have access to Pyroblast or Molten Collapse, but you have better access to your basics without hurting your plan, and you can support Harbinger in the sideboard. The main things for me. The 4th Wasteland is a big one because you can't really fit that in when you're trying to play Grixis, which basically means that if you're facing a lot of like Ursa Sagas or Ancient Tombs, etc., you're just gonna miss the 4th Wasteland some percentage of the time. So they offer different things. Opponent goes turn 1 Ponder and keeps the cards. I can delay my decision, so I have three calls here. 3 things to do. Turn 1 Tameo. Turn 1 Wasteland. or turn 1 spell bomb. I'm actually fine playing the Tamiyo here. Let's hope my opponent uses resources on that one. I have a second. So I'm obviously weak to Entomb Reanimate right now, but we might as well be playing a mirror. So I think this is the best play. Now okay, I'm not getting stormed. Interesting. This pedal is very curious. What does that mean? Doomsday is the most likely deck right now that I'm up against, which is a bit scary. So let's see. Doomsday. Doomsday will sometimes run Tamiyo Bowmasters, etc. Oh, yeah, this is quite tough. I think I want to develop more creatures here. If my opponent had a Doomsday, they could have just cast it rather than passed a turn. My opponent's a show and tell deck. They could have cast that as well. I don't know. Pedal. In theory, you could play that to turbo out your Reanimator strategy. Ah, this is so hard. My gut feeling is Doomsday here. Yeah, my gut feeling is Doomsday. But yeah, this is just... So my opponent played that pedal voluntarily. I have no idea what this is. So this is a card that could throw me off, I guess. Now I'm going to try and cast an Orcish Bowmaster in response to this and see what happens. Omen of the Sea. I guess you would play this if you have Besiege the Mirror in your deck. Brainstorm response, crack pedal. So we take that without that being, that's not, you know, ideal, but it's serviceable. So that happens. Bowmaster resolves. I assume my opponent is a Besiege the Mirror deck after having seen this card, which is kind of cool, not gonna lie. So the good thing about having pressure is I'm killing my opponent faster. The bad thing about having pressure is I'm giving my opponent a reason to try and go off. I just assume something bad is happening now that I didn't account for. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. The One Ring. So I assume this is also a Besiege the Mirror deck. So with the One Ring, let's see. That doesn't work. Well, I can develop a Kaito and draw a card, obviously, which might be... No, I can't draw a card, right? Yeah, lost life this turn. So now, obviously, the opponent has protection, so I'm just supposed to ping my Orc army. Now I'm in big trouble. Because I'm not killing my opponent next turn. They're drawing a bunch of cards. When I mean next turn, it's like the following turn. Obviously, after the protection, basically. I feel like that should be my number one objective, is to only give my opponent one more turn to try and kill me, which I think they will pretty easily. So what do I have against this deck? I have negations and a single consign, and that's about it. Not ideal. Opponent kept the cards on Ponder, so I'm almost certain that I'm dead here. Okay, Ponder is not a bad draw. So in theory, I could find my Force of Will here. Let's cast this card. Second Bowmaestro. Pinging my opponent to 15, they go to 14, draw, ping. Yeah, the thing is, I just don't think it's a difference maker. Really annoying that that's the case. Bowmaster. I don't think second Bowmaster is good enough here. Brainstorm. That means I'm flipping my Tamiyo, and I should get my clue first. Yeah, I probably do that. Then I might Wasteland. I'm on deck. You can do it. Days makes Wasteland slightly better. So I guess I just put a push on top. What if I get Thought Seized here? Maybe it's Kaito. Yeah, that's fine. Let's put Kaito on top. Flipping Tamio plus a Wasteland C to, you know, again, try and stall this game because the One Ring and my creatures could, you know, get there, but it's very unlikely. Petal Omen of the Sea. I never saw that coming, but at the very least, okay. Street Wraith. So maybe this is just a Doomsday deck. Okay. Another cycle. Going to 11. I have 7 damage here. Yeah, my only hope is my opponent puts a Doomsday on this deck. Which they do. So if my opponent goes to 5 and draws 2 cards, I'm trying to think about when this days is good, because if I counter this one and I succeed, my opponent passes the turn in theory. They attack my opponent down to 3, and then they have the One Ring in play. Which will put them to 2, and then they can draw. I feel like I should daze this card. I feel like too much bad stuff can happen if I let my opponent draw 2 cards into the deck post Doomsday. Okay, my opponent goes all in here. And they... Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. I don't think I was supposed to win this game, but at the very least I gave myself a chance to, which is sometimes the only thing you can do, right? So those 3 are good. Those 4 are terrible. So can we find a serviceable card? If we just... Should we account for my opponent bringing in, like, Sheldred? And is that better than having a random blue card that doesn't do anything? You can argue I could force my opponent to play mono blue with Harbinger. Okay, maybe Harbinger's better until further notice. Further notice. Spellbomb doesn't seem very good. Let's just have second Harbinger. So it's not because I think the card is awesome. It's because I think the card is, you know, it pitches to my 6 forces, and then it does something in a Blue Moon scenario of my opponent having Triple Underground Sea in play and getting host. And then if they have like a hefty plan B, I will have to reconsider, because I didn't see any, you know, Cameo, Bowmasters, Murktides just yet. So pretty scary to play in the dark like this. The triple 1-drop hand against Doomsday, but I guess the Brainstorm salvages this one. There's also the dynamic of, you know, my opponent doesn't want to just jam and look silly and lose to a force. So I buy a little bit of time just because of that, you know, that fact. Okay, not a good draw. I think that's my play for the turn, though. I think it's better to get Tamio going than Nethergoyf going. Nethergoyf is always hard to evaluate because you want to put your opponent on pressure, under pressure, but attacking, you know, I don't know, twice with Nethergoyf or 3 times and then losing doesn't really do anything. So you want a combination, and the second copy is actually quite bad. So let's say I had a better sideboard, I would easily trim one of those guys because you don't want to see 2 very often. Opponent casting Brainstorm at a smart time. Fetch open. Days would be bad. They play around potential Bowmasters. Nothing to report there. So now in theory I should worry about my opponent's Bowmaster, but the way that I sideboarded, I didn't, I didn't account for that. So now, let's see. Don't want to get dazed on the Brainstorm. If I didn't care about that, I could wait with my land drop, but I actually think there's a very, very, very high chance I'm going to want to develop a color source anyway, and I don't want to get dazed, so. Okay, so if my opponent has a Bowmaster here, I'm in big trouble. Okay, they have Orcish Bowmasters. Draw a bunch of cards. Wasteland, probably bad. So let's see. Ponder is also bad as long as that card's in play. Well, maybe just one of the lands and Ponder, I guess. I'm gonna try and win the game with bad aggro. Okay, let's try. So now my opponent will probably kill the Tamiyo. I would at least suggest they do. So that's gonna hit the bin, and then I'm gonna play a 3/4. Tiny detail to notice is that I deliberately kept a black fetch in my hand because I boarded in the Harbingers that could potentially hose my opponent here. Now they're force a willing Nethergoyf because they want to like go the distance with these guys. I actually think I'm in a great spot here, but let's see if I speak too soon. Wouldn't pass the turn. Ooh, I have some good stuff here. Feel like I should wasteland my opponent. If they then flash in Bowmasters, I'll use this turn to brazen my opponent's 5/5. If they don't flash in Bowmasters, I feel I can play a little bit slower. Let's try and kill that card to prompt. Okay, they don't have that one. Okay. So now, what if I go to 11 and I thought seize my opponent? I think that works because that'll make my Nethergoyf into a 4/5, which is quite good for this. This is too funny. So double Doomsday and the Sheldred. I think I'm supposed to leave my opponent with double Doomsday. Let's try that. And then I play a 4/5 to stop the aggression. And then next turn I can consider the flyer. Dark Ritual will make things very complicated for me. Okay. Ponder is not a good draw. I think what I'm supposed to do here is attack, bounce the Orc army on my opponent's turn. And try and get this over with. I could have considered actually surveilling there, and if I hit a Planeswalker, I could have grown it, but I don't like it because of the odds, basically. I think it's better to react to what my opponent's doing. Let's get rid of that card now before my opponent gets a draw. And now I'm firmly winning the race. Which is everything I should be focusing on here. I believe it's time to Murktide. The fact that my opponent forced a Nethergoyf at that point was really, it defined the game. It defined the game a lot. Tamiyo and Murktide, and I can play both. Let's see if I can find lethal over 2 swings here. 9. So how can I keep as many types in my yard as possible? Do I want to get dazed? I probably don't want to get dazed, so I can leave 3 cards. Let's see. Murk. Getting rid of instant. Sorcery. And then leave creature and land, I guess. So unclear if this is lethal. It is not. But getting my opponent to 1 life is almost lethal against Doomsday. And now Doomsday passes off the table as well. I need to win on the spot, which is possible because I don't have anything. Here's a fetch. Let's see. Petal. All right. Thassa's Oracle. Not ideal. My opponent's hand is double Doomsday. And I'm cracking in for 6 in the air. Let's see if I can get it to 8. I don't think I can. We left the card on top, so I have to assume that that's, you know, my opponent's own Murktide Regent, which is scary. Wow. Did I just win the game? Kaito. Nice draw. Nice draw. So I certainly should have thought about that. That I was opening up, you know, Kaito being lethal with that Tamiyo. But I didn't. And here we go. Alright, pretty sick first match here. I don't think I was supposed to win the first game. And then the second one had a lot of small choices, picking up on my opponent's type of hand when it comes to forcing the Nethergoyf. And then actually drawing 2 Nethergoyfs turned out to be great. So yeah, it wasn't too bad after all. Let's see if we can keep up the winning. All right, round 2 with my Dimir tempo deck. This hand is just very polarized. It's good, right? It's just very polarized with these hit or miss cards. Good thing I'm on the play here, so I can just go Tamiyo. It would actually be funny if I died to Spell's turn 1 here. I could see the humor in that. That is not the case. Mountain Pass. So I'm just going to assume this is Red Prison, which is atrocious for my hand. I wonder... I'm probably supposed to ponder because I play a deck full of Thoughtseize, Daze, I guess Nethergoyf. Let's see if we can find a live card. This is not a live card, although that one being a basic. How do you play how do you play Magic the Gathering? I think I play Magic the Gathering like this, so I go Delta Pass this way. I'm playing a little bit better against actual Blood Moon, and I'm playing a whole lot better against, you know, the Bombardiers of the world, the Fables of the world. That card I did not see coming. And then what? I draw 2? Or whatever they're called? No, not that. Okay. Okay, well, yeah, it just shows how powerful it is to play a rogue deck. I planned for Red Prison when casting my Ponder and not casting the next spell, and my opponent is just over there storming off. Red Sturm. How much do I have against that deck? Blasts, negations, consigns, maybe Cage. I don't know if they're a Past in Flames deck. Probably not. Ruby Medallion turning Desperate Ritual into an actual ritual. That's cool. Manamorphous, of course, being absurd. net a mana, draw a card. That's a ritual I'll play any day of the week. There's Seething Song. That's usually their breaking point of. That's the one you want to counter because it's the most mana investment. Kind of like playing against Belcher 12 years ago. I feel like it's kind of the same logic. Yeah, this is a good example of why cards like Spellbomb. Here's the draw 2 I was talking about. Spellbomb, Push. Those are situational, right? But when you're playing something proactive, like the Red Storm deck, any card in that deck is helping the plan. So I just assume I'm dead here. I'm going to learn a little bit more about my opponent's plan. Here's Bergie is a card I can kill, actually. I have to respond first chance I get. Wish. Yeah, I have to kill that card in response. This is the card you want it to force a will if you had that luxury. So now I feel like my opponent will just make goblins and I can't win. Against a deck like that, you just want to draw like Thoughtseize, Force of Will type cards. Oh, Galvanic Relay. Okay. So let's see. If my opponent has a good enough pile, I'm just going to move on to the next game. Ooh. Play another Bergie out to storm for one more. Let's see. Burning Wish, Burning Wish. Yes, yes, yes. You got it. Okay. Mono Red Storm. That's a cool deck. Consign. Yeah, those 5 are awesome. So Bowmaster is just straight up terrible. Fatal Push is the same. I can bring one of those in. 1 mana, very flexible to kill Bergie. Maybe the explosives if my opponent goes for some goblin shenanigans. Then keep a Bowmaster around for ninja shenanigans. They might have a draw 7 in there somewhere. Maybe they will play thinking the Ral, actually. Maybe I need, like... Maybe the graveyard is not relevant and I need a couple of pushes if they play the 2 mana discount bear. Yeah, this looks like something that can do a little bit of damage. Maybe I cut a Wasteland for a Bowmaster. Is that relevant? Let's try that. All right, game 2. I got severely destroyed game 1 against Mono Red Storm. Let's see if I can do a little bit better. Lots of good cards, no lands. Would have been an easy keep, of course, with a land. And this is an easy bottom the push and play on. So plan is here to build for a Murktide. This is solid. I don't think I have to force a will turn 1, but I want to have that option, I think. Then the turn after, I want to cast Brainstorm into the fetch. And then the turn after that, I want to deploy Murktide. So this is as good as it gets, I think, from 6 cards. Guess the push is quite bad, but we can shuffle that with Brainstorm. That opening is going to haunt me, the Mountain Pass. So easily get rid of push here. And then what's the next card I get rid of? Is it Tameo? Probably. So this way I can pass the turn with Hydro up, and if nothing happens, I can either cast Brainstorm or Surveil. 3 cards in yard, 4 cards in the yard. Yeah, let's see. Daze is currently my front runner for Force Pitch. Maybe not. Will that deck play Spirit Guide? It probably will, but I think it's worth checking if Daze connects here. I'm really in the market for filling my graveyard and playing a Murktide ASAP because Time is not going to favor me in this matchup. Is this Manamorphose? Oh, it's Reckless Impulse. I feel like that's a card I'm just supposed to hydro. So Hydro Blast that, counter target spell if it's red. And then worth noting is I'm one card off from casting the Murktide. Because I didn't get to daze anything. Let's see if we can spike something. So Force is a good draw. Still think I should dig here. Yeah, that's bad. Very bad. So let's assume I have to force twice. Is Daze going to be live this game? On top of forcing twice? I don't think so. So with that being said, I put back those two because I want to play a 3-4. And I have double force. So that deck is actually quite good against Force of Will by storming. So you have to counter the Burning Wish. But if they natural draw Galvanic Relay, really nothing you can do. So let's see if I get to counter a Storm card here, or... Oh, sorry. I get to counter a Burning Wish, or I get to lose to a Storm card. That's basically the two options here. Let's see what this is. So the opponent wants to add 4 red mana here. Is this where I draw the line? I'll try and draw the line here. Try and use the Seething Song logic. Biggest problem is... Yeah. So right now, if my opponent has a Burning Wish hand, I'm looking silly. But if they don't, could look like a champ. Let's see. So I shut down the bottleneck here. And then I'm killing my opponent in a few turns. 1, 2, let's see, 3, 4. Leaving a sorcery should be slightly better, I think. So my opponent has to kill me now, which is possible, but they just spent 3 cards, so I'm hoping that I got them. Another Seething Song. Now it's time to see if I played well or played poorly. My opponent has a Burning Wish. I wish I let them go. My opponent has Galvanic Relay. Then I'm beating them with the creatures before they get a chance to use those cards. Exciting stuff. Also, I think there's a new Storm spell, like a 6 mana, make some dragons or whatever. That was another reason that I fought correctly over it. Last turn. Because they would have made infinite dragons, I couldn't win. Now they're making, you know, maybe just 2 dragons, who knows? If that's the case. I made Galvanic Relay a non-factor. Draw 2. Bonus round. I can't remember that card. Until end of turn, cast into a copy. Okay, that's a problem. But the opponent has limited red mana to work with. Here's another draw 2. So generally, this is good for me. This is like an opponent, you know, cracking a clue or casting a, you know, ponder or whatever. That means they don't already have what they need, that you need to look for it. And it's very unclear that the opponent has 3 extra mana to cast bonus round here. Right. So Ruby Medallion certainly helped. But the opponent just spent 4 mana digging. Now they have to pay 2 mana for Ruby Medallion and then having 1 mana left after that. So I think I'm doing fine here. You have the mountain available. I forgot about that. If my opponent just bricks here and we go to game 3, it's pretty safe to say that I locked a Galvanic Relay in my opponent's hand. So the other card must be good in the opponent's hand, I guess. Or there's no relay, obviously. Beautiful thing is, we set ourselves up. We had a very good plan to just force our opponent to kill us within a time frame. Sometimes that's all you can do in a game of Magic. I interacted with my opponent 3 times. I presented lethal, and then it's on them to beat me what they have left, right? So this is just to say that anybody can maneuver this game, and we don't really have control over what our opponent drew for the turn or what they hit off of impulse. Here's Burning Wish. The opponent is looking for a 2-mana sorcery. Or 1-mana sorcery in this case. I'm super curious what the opponent's last card is. Yeah, I don't know. They have obviously Storm 6, but 1 card. What is the last card? That, because they're still playing the game, right? So they can't. Oh, they can. And then they have to get lucky here. Okay. Beautiful. Petal is certainly part of this. Okay, they bricked. That was a very nice try. I always love when people like really play to their outs, like even though it's super slim, I think is awesome. Okay, so it looks like we get to a game 3 against that deck. Especially those Ren's Resolve and what's the other name? Reckless Impulse. Those really make the deck hard to play against. So I didn't really learn anything that changed how I view my cards. Bowmaster's still the worst card in the deck. Nethergoyf is still, you know, necessary evil to put on pressure sometimes. Wasteland still sucks. Daze is probably gonna be bad. I think my opponent has a good deck against my deck. Alright. Let's try again. Game 3 against ManaTraders. Certainly not a deck that I have on my guide. This hand is... Oh, crap. So my opponent will turn 1. They can do whatever they want. Turn 2, they can do whatever they want. Yeah, this is just bad, because I'm waiting for my brainstorm to fix this hand later in the game, but I think it's better to just use the mulligan button in that scenario. This is better. I'm trying to think about explosives, but I don't think I have the luxury to keep that card. You could actually argue I should have bottomed the mountain, because it doesn't help cast Murktide. Ooh, turn 1 Rite of Flame into Ral. I should probably force this card. I don't love it, but I think I should. I am keeping my Daze, because after my opponent going Rite of Flame Ral, it's more likely that Daze is going to be live, so... I think I might have to Daze this exact turn. I'm going to play my creature and develop the island. I am giving up some surveil value. I think this is more clutch against exactly... Oh, it's not that, but it's also clutch. I thought about the draw twos. So now we're playing from very low resource. Thoughtseize is a good draw. I'm going to first main it here to pump my Goyf before attacking. That's exactly the card I was talking about. Let's give that a read. Stormscale Dragon. That's such a cool card. 6 mana, Storm, and you copy it, so you get like so big creatures. With that being said, I think I have to take the Burgie, right? The opponent plays that. Yeah. Also, I failed to realize that explosives doesn't work against that card because the copies will be 6 mana cards, so I currently have a very bad engineered explosives in my deck. Ren's Resolve. Opponent can cast these, so maybe that Force Will was an insane draw. Let's see. I think I counter the draw 2 here. Yeah, this doesn't feel good. I'm all in here. My opponent has the dragon card. Oh, I keep drawing solid cards here to stay in the game while attacking with Black Delver. So my opponent has dragon card, something, reckless impulse. Can we keep drawing time walks? Not quite. So next turn, my opponent has free reigns, but if I pair this with a blue card, that is the same. Wow. So now I feel like any ritual I'll just counter because I can't beat the dragons. And then maybe I have to fade one more turn. 5. Yeah. So if the problem is a land, funny. A land actually cast that card. And then even then it's a problem. So let's see. Do I play the Wasteland out? Is that deck a Saga deck? I don't think so. There's no way. Maybe I keep this for future brainstorm. So opponent has to do it to me now. 6. Okay. So I negate what's coming here and I win the game. That's incredible. That's one of the luckiest things I've ever seen. Let's see if that's true. So I'm going to counter this because my opponent would have played this card last turn if they had it. So, wow. Wait a minute. They just have that 6-drop in hand, right? What am I missing? Yeah. Wow, that was so lucky. Force the Ral, daze the Medallion, Thoughtseize Fergie, Force Pitch onto Ren, Hydra onto Ren, Negation onto Metamorphose while attacking. Yeah, that was not my match to win. Let's be honest, but you know, you have to give yourself the chance, and I think I did that by mulliganing and by forcing that turn 1 Ral. Then I allowed myself to win a game where my opponent is stranded with the 6-drop, and I get the job done exactly. So, yeah, pretty high-level stuff here. I'm pretty happy to have that one on camera. On to the last one. All right, last match of the video featuring Dimir Tempo, another 0-lander. It's a bad habit if you want to win games. What about this, though? Should probably keep this hand and get rid of a land. I think that's reasonable. Opponent's also on a mulligan. So let's see. What's the differences of these lands? Could go turn 1 island, turn 2 swamp. That'll make Murktide harder to cast later on, potentially. So maybe I just go for Underground Seas. Okay. So obviously keeping the Spellbomb here is not perfect. If this was a bauble, it would be a lot better. Then I played my Tamir turn 2 and everybody's happy. But that's not the case because we are hedging for the top of the meta game, which, to be fair, is probably not the way to do it. If you're just playing leagues, you should find room in your sideboard for these 2 Nihil Spellbombs and play baubles in the main deck. But if you're trying to win a challenge or like a big 100-person paper tournament in your area, then you should play this list. Making distinctions like that is always important. It's just, for me, I care about the super competitive stuff and the challenges. So the decks I'm building, you know, they're tuned towards that. So in a situation like this, I feel like on the play it's fine to not respect, you know, getting wastelanded, because that's usually a bad idea for the opponent to do in a spot like this. But on the draw, you can make a bit more conservative decisions while just remembering that maybe you need to cast, I don't know, Brainstorm Murktide on with 3 mana, and then all of a sudden you can't. Thinking about that ahead of time is very important when you play tempo. Because you could just look at his hand and say, oh, it's free to get the swamp and island, but it isn't. Okay, land pass. I just guess this would have been dead already if my opponent had the removal spell, so pretty nice. So now Cameo getting in there, and I can kind of sculpt a little game plan around this. So we could be up against like Mir and Step in Tomb. Step in Tomb. Is that the reason why I should bomb first to play around days? And then ponder, despite it being kind of bad value? Yeah, I think this is when we hedge a little bit. Because in theory, pondering first is better, because then I get to pick the best one, then shuffle. Also, funnily enough, if I put in push this one, I drew a second Tameo. Force a Will. I think that's a card I'm willing to gamble on. The land is not that bad. So let's draw the land next turn. So with Tameo in play, you can kind of go into what I call frog mode, which is basically... Is this in Tomb? No, it's not in Tomb. Lorne revealed. Okay. You can kind of go into frog mode where then any exchange, like push this, wasteland that, force that, while attacking with Tameo, it's going to be a good exchange. Okay, it looks like we're up against Beanstalk. That should be fun. I didn't exactly tune my deck to beat Control. I don't consider Control like a major player in the metagame, but of course you can face it, and should be an interesting match. So just having this online is amazing for me. And no push, obviously, in my opponent's hand. Now I could flip the Tameo. I'm trying to think about what would that do. Flipping the Tameo is probably quite decent. You open myself up for Witherbloom command. I think that's all right. So let's see. Let's shuffle here. Getting that one. Cracking a clue, and then cracking the spell bomb afterwards. Draw. Trigger Tameo. Also, if my opponent is leaning on Murderous Cut here, I'm making that card worse. Murktide Regent, etc. But if I get Witherbloom commanded here, I mean, that would be annoying, but still think it's fine. Corrupt Decay takes care of it either way. It already gave me a couple of clues, so it's going to be good value no matter what here. I will fight over it, though, if my opponent just goes Witherbloom. Because any force exchange we can have before Beanstalk hits the field is going to be good for me as well. Now let's imagine the scenario my opponent goes Beanstalk, then I'm also going to force that. And then I might bring back a Force of Will next turn. Basic Forest. This is just Uro. Endurance. Okay. So my opponent's not respecting days here, which says a bit. I feel like with me having Murktide in hand, this is worth fighting over. What am I pitching, though? Brazen Borrower seems quite bad. The next turn I can go Murktide Nethergoyf or Murktide Tameo. Okay, let's try that. Force a Will, pitch Brazen Borrower onto the Endurance. Not ideal, but again, I'm playing against Beanstalk, so if my opponent forces now, it's just a force they're not going to have later post Beanstalk. So there's a lot of mitigating factors here to this play not being as bad as it looks. Very sad to not have a daze in this spot. Opponent forces back. That's a very good play. The opponent could just apply the logic of, if it matters so much to me, then they should probably fight over it. Because there's no way I'm forcing this. If it's not important to me, then I just hang on to it and, you know, don't care. Okay, so I feel like I should surveil first in case there's a fatal push. Then I can clue into the push. Yeah, that's going to be either clue into the push or return it. I guess I would return. No, sorry, I guess I would clue into it. Let's see. Kaito's pretty good, but also... Well, maybe it's awesome, because my opponent will be busy attacking the Tameo. Okay, so... Play Tameo, play Nethergoyf. plus. And then I'm trying to get Kaito going while my opponent's busy with my Planeswalker. Should be fine. Orcish Bowmaster, funnily enough, Flames on Caboose, my other go for right now. Looks like my opponent found the Wither Bloom. Yeah. That's... I don't even know. Doesn't my Netherglyph survive here? Netherglyph survives. Not the best play. The opponent should have milled himself here to try and find out a free land instead. So it's very annoying that I have to change my plan a little bit here because of me losing the Tamiyo. I think I'm supposed to attack and then double clue. I don't think my opponent has a Bowmaster, then they would have killed this Netherglyph. So last turn rather than fool around. Let's flip that. Play land. So let's see. If I cast Brainstorm now, Netherglyph is big enough to tussle with Endurance. I feel like I should do that maybe on my opponent's turn. Or maybe now. No, maybe it's on my opponent's turn. I'm trying to think about ways to get punished for doing that, because I don't want my opponent to go like Brainstorm into Bowmaster, completely crush me, but maybe that's fine. I just need to do it on upkeep here, otherwise they can bargain into the Bowmaster. Casting this card now, it's a good window. These cards are horrible. Guess I should play around my opponent playing a discard spell deck. Right? Right, guys? Maybe this Kaito is the best of the two. Okay, let's put those back. I hope my opponent draws, because I think that deck is like a 2 to 3 copies of Thoughtseize deck. Just imagine my opponent drew Thoughtseize here, and I bricked it entirely while growing a Goyf and timely playing around bargain into Bowmaster. Holding the fort here with a 3/4. Let's see what this is. Could be bargain. Yeah, okay. I really like how I played this. Just imagine okay, cut, same deal, I guess. My opponent has one card left, and we know it's not a Bowmaster. I guess theoretically they could have just drawn it. I'm drawing Kaito here. So maybe Wasteland. The green. My opponent could have Uro in the deck, so that's why it's relevant. Play Kaito. And then, yes, stun the Endurance, pass, try and grind out my opponent here. I'm drawing a Murktide, which is going to be awesome. My opponent can't hardcast Force, that's another good thing here. Really like how this game is progressing. So now, I feel like I should attack first to see what happens, right? Opponent has 2 cards, not Beanstalk. Could be Force of Will. Second Endurance, I guess, is possible. Is that a no, I think this is fine attack. I only think my opponent plays 2 Endurances. Another reason, by the way, to wasteland that land. I only thought about Uro at the time. Let's see here. Surveil, draw. How good is that Netherglyph after I've depleted my own graveyard? So I can leave a Tamiyo. Yeah, Murktide is actually not that impressive either. Okay. I'm putting both in my graveyard. Drawing Thoughtseize. Okay, not bad. Let's Thoughtseize that Force of Will out of my opponent's hand. Ooh, Fatal Push and a Dead Sanctuary. Love that. So now let's plus. I can get rid of Brainstorm, Thoughtseize. Land, I guess. I'll play like this. Paying 4, keeping lands in hand for future Brainstorm. Okay, tons of small decisions in this game. I think my opponent needs something right now, or they're going to be heading to sideboarding. Bargain. Okay, that keeps the game going. That's cool. Oh, another cut that I thought was bargain. Okay, so Murktide down. So I think I'm just supposed to keep attacking here. Then I can bring back Nelagoy for the... No, I can't, because I only have creatures in land. Okay, let's attack. So now I have to find, like, a push, a Bowmaster. Lots of stuff I can find here. Nope. Those cards are bad. Brainstorm, that's amazing. So, cast Brainstorm. Draw bad cards. Okay. So, this is partially why I kept those lands. But now what I could do... Yeah, I feel like I should just not play the variance game here. I should bring back Nethergoyf and force whatever my opponent's drawing. So let's see. 1, 2, 3. Creature, land, sorcery, instant. Plus. Stop on my next upkeep to fetch to make sure I don't draw the terrible card. So in order for my opponent to keep this game from continuing, they need to draw exactly Abrupt Decay, kill this one to pressure Tamiyo down to 6 loyalty. Oof, that was a beautiful game. Beautiful game. So against that deck, Harbinger is amazing. Aragorn serviceable. Negation serviceable. Maybe I just cut all pushes. I realize they do kill endurance. I don't like daze. I feel like my opponent can... I don't like Force of Will E. Well, Force of Will, it's the Beanstalk card. That's the only thing, right? Which is also the reason for the negation. So if I do like this, I'm on 60 cards. Not bad. Do I want like a single Fatal Push to go on top of the one Dismember, spot removal against mainly Endurance? Or is this... No, this is probably where I want Bitter Triumph as a flexible card that also kills Murktide in a pinch. So if I were to add that card, what would I cut? Cutting one card. But the problem is I actually think all my other cards are better. You can... Yeah, let's cut a Brazen Borrower. But maybe that's not the card to cut, actually, with, you know, 6 forces being in the mix. Okay. Tough times. Endurance. If that card is in play, things get a little bit awkward, but I do have counterplay with Kaito, with Murktide, with Baragorth. Okay, I think I talked myself into playing hard mode against those endurances. Also, that's a card I can leave stranded in my opponent's hand if I'm lucky enough to land a Harbinger. It's a bit of a tough matchup because if they don't have a Beanstalk, I think I'm winning, or at least, you know, in a good spot. But if they do have Beanstalk, that's exactly where things can get complicated. I've actually been mulliganing a lot today, despite I think this is like the most consistent deck in Legacy, probably. Okay, I like this hand. My opponent's on 7 cards. Probably the Spell Bomb that is the card I need to bottom, because I kind of need my opponent to spend a removal spell on the Nethergoyf. And then the plan is to land the Harbinger, but I also have to mask it quite a bit. I will need an additional land in order to play it with a swamp, which is a bit of a problem. But in Milling Wasteland, I actually take that as a weakness. I'm actually willing to say my opponent was milling for a colored source, and I could put them in trouble here. I'm not going to see being a very bad draw. So I think this is where I hopefully just trade with a Fatal Push and we move on with life. Okay, my opponent with no Fatal Push and no fetch. So that means they're just running 1, I guess. This is good for me. Their respect for Bowmaster, by timing the brainstorm like this, opens up my window to brainstorm without being scared of Bowmasters, which is kind of cool. Is this Carpet? Carpet would be very annoying. I actually didn't think about that until now. Carpet is a pretty good counter to Harbinger. That's fine. You should just see the Harbinger as you add some upside to your deck that maybe you can catch your opponent off guard. Like this game, it looks incredible, right? Draw Wasteland, which is interesting. I actually want to invite the days here. Let's try and invite the days. No days. Ooh. So Thoughtseize is awesome. So maybe what I do now is Great situation, actually. What if I get rid of C and Wasteland? Then I fetch C, cast Thoughtseize. And then next turn I can fetch, play Harbinger. I have to do it like this. I would have loved to keep the Wasteland. But then if I can't do that. So I have Thoughtseize here first main to grow the Goyf. Fetch the C to conceal the plan. Now, let's see if it works. Okay. My opponent has an annoying hand, very redundant. I'm very bad against Murktide. Let's say my opponent jams Murktide and I get wasted. I'm just not doing anything right because the opponent's going to be a 5/5. Okay, I guess so. My Murktide is also going to be a 5/5 if that's the case. Okay. Is that an argument for taking the Force of Will? Very well could be. Let me think this through. Opponent has... No, because they outgrow my Murktide then. Okay, I think I have to take the Murktide, which is very annoying. Alright. So, in this case, my opponent doesn't have any threats. My opponent has good answer cards, and the Harbinger, if that gets forced, it's also good, right? In theory, I could try and exhaust my opponent by playing Murktide first. Okay. My opponent's... Ooh, my opponent drew a good card here. Okay, that's actually not that bad. So... And I get wasted. Okay. So now... Ooh. I think I just go all in on a Murktide. That was a pretty nice draw. Now I go fetch Murktide, force your force. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. force your force, and then my opponent is left with bargain, which is good. And then I'm following up with Bowmaster. Yeah, I mean, this is the plan at least. If my opponent lets this resolve saying, I'll take a few hits while trying to outdraw you with bargain, I'm just going to force the issue on the bargain and then get forced there. So I don't think it changes much. Also, I have perfect info on my opponent's hand. In theory, the opponent could be scared of getting dazed here. Which, you know, is reasonable. But I have the intention of fighting over the bargain, in which case, I mean, then that card is just getting dazed, right? So the opponent should just force here and realize that it doesn't get any better. That's exactly what they're going to do. And I didn't know about the Harbinger. I always make note of things like that. I'm playing a 5-5, which also means my opponent's Murktide at any time will be bigger than mine. Just assume they pitched the revealed. Yes, they did. Now, since they just daze checked me, I assume the bargain will get cast now. Yes, bargain resolves. Now, because of this situation, I don't think my opponent's going to prioritize Bowmaster, so I'm going to play mine out like sorcery speed. Because I don't want my opponent to untap and cast draw spells and stuff like that. Also worth noting is my opponent fetched the second black instead of the second green here, so maybe there's some endurance complications in the opponent's future. He put push and swamp into the yard. Very reasonable. Let's see. I draw negation. I would guess around the worst card in my deck. So here I'm basically targeting my opponent taking something like Beanstalk and Cantrip off of the bargain. Let's see what this is. I'm hoping this is a Beanstalk. This is kind of the dream scenario if that's the case. It's not. Yes, mill 3 cards, bring back an island, I guess. Oh, you can bring back any land, of course, not just the 3. Same philosophy. My opponent, did my opponent bring back... Oh, I'm even getting Murderous Cut here. Okay, so my opponent found amazing cards off the bargain. That's going to be tough to beat. And then my opponent puts me to 1 land to make sure second Murktide is not coming, to make sure Bowmaster is not coming. Great play by the opponent. And negation looking bad here, to say the least. Okay, the opponent played super well this game. I don't think I'm casting that Brainstorm, am I? What's the upside here? Getting like land Nethergorth would be good. Getting Wasteland for the green would be useful. Yeah. Maybe I have to get a little bit lucky here. Okay. So I Wasteland my opponent off green, attack for 1. The next turn I play Tamiyo, and the next turn I play Brainstorm. Which is why I should put back Brainstorm, then Tamiyo. Because if I get Thoughtseized, my opponent will see my worst card. I'm losing to a lot of things here, but right now I can maybe strain green cards in my opponent's hand. I can maybe get that Tamiyo going. This is a pretty cool match to end the video with. So many small decisions, and you have to look for new opportunities, update your plan depending on what happens. Make a read, try and set up a situation, then be willing to abandon that if something new happens. Okay, so I did not succeed disrupting my opponent's mana. I am in big trouble now. Let's start with the attack here. Trying to think about what I realistically can beat this game. And if that Tamiyo being force fodder is part of it. So if the opponent had Beanstalk, they would have cast it. It could be another bargain, which would be worth forcing, but nah. I'm just gonna play this. It's so slim. My opponent bricked on land there. You can make the argument. Well played by my opponent, taking the 1 damage there. Fetching a Bayou. So they do play Bayou, but there's the conflict of building up towards Mystic Sanctuary, of course. Yeah, here's exactly all the reasons I would have loved to have Bowmasters in play. That was kind of what I was hoping for, with the Murktide being the main threat, and then Bowmaster bringing home the bacon against some Beanstalk and Cantrip draws. But the Witherbloom saved the day. Okay, my opponent ran out of fetches. Now I think I'm holding the Brainstorm. Because now there's some super weird world where this is going to be good enough. Can't beat Bowmaster, so that's not the reason. It's simply because it might, you know, be a time walk. That card is probably unbeatable. That card is unbeatable right now. Ponder. Yes. So now I think I'm brainstorming on my own turn to look as deep as possible for an Isle Spellbomb. Because now my opponent's kind of out of reach, so I need more than the most mana efficient solution. I need the solution that is more likely to work. They just got the life buffer. I do brainstorm into Nile Spellbomb, but I think that's for next turn, funnily enough. So what if I put back Tamiyo and Spellbomb? Is it just bad logic that I'm clearing the graveyard next turn? I think this is good. Because the reason why this is good is I leave the door open for my opponent not having the second green, and then I can interact with whatever. And I actually think that's pretty reasonable. Because the opponent did not play a land. Up the Beanstalk. No. So now I'm down to having nothing, but I'm clearing my opponent's graveyard. I could easily see my opponent having a Bowmaster here, unfortunately. What can I beat here? I don't like my opponent's hesitation. Am I ever beating that Bowmaster, though? I don't think so. Did I do it on my opponent's upkeep? Yeah, I think so. I think my opponent could have Lauren revealed in hand. So I succeed clearing my opponent's graveyard, drawing into the Tamiyo. Burrow's out of the picture. Here comes Beanstalk. Here comes Ponder. So somehow this game is winnable. I'm really happy with, I found the line of have force blue card instead of Spellbomb that turn, because my opponent just resolved the cantrip and didn't have the second green. So I kind of got to do two things at the same time. Two birds with one stone. That's the one. So my opponent keeps the cards. That's just very bad news. Thoughtseize. Okay. So I get to Thoughtseize and cast Tamiyo here. The dream is I see a Murktide Regent in my opponent's hand that they've been, you know, sitting with. So what's the dream here? My opponent has, I guess just Murktide or Lauren Revealed is the likely card I'm hitting here. How many traps are gone? Maybe the deck only runs a single Hedge Maze, single trop. Okay. 2 good cards. That's unfortunate. But let's see. What if I take the Bowmaster? 2 cards in the graveyard. 3 cards with the Delta. I have a feeling my opponent's out of fetchables. I don't know about that. Let's see. Swamp and Island in the yard as well. Trop? Maybe my opponent's out of fetchables. I think I have to take this Bowmaster out. It's very annoying that Murders cuts cantrips with Up the Beanstalk. Let's see if I write about my opponent being low on fetchables here. Ooh, looks like they saved the best card on top of the deck. That's nasty. So, yeah, okay. Murderous cut onto Tamiyo, draw card. So do I have lethal with a Bowmaster? Are you telling me I'm winning the game if I can draw Orcish Bowmaster? Cast Ponder. Find Orcish Bowmaster. Since I'm attacking my opponent to 2, Thoughtseize is not a thing. Let's read with a Bloom command. Target player mills 3 cards. That's funny. So for that reason, I'm going to take the Bowmaster into my hand. Because I put my opponent to 2 here, so considering Thoughtseize is not a thing. But if my opponent gets next level here and mills me with Witherbloom command, that would be very sad. Opponent's currently on... Okay, so they do have basic forest. This is exactly why you need to keep track. My opponent ran out of... Oh crap, is this Arrow? Then I'm in trouble. No, it's not Arrow. Maybe it's Draw 3? Or Murky Boy, I guess. Murky Boy. Okay. So this is exactly why the opponent had Delta. I noticed that the opponent fetched... Oh, ooh, Wasteland did it to me there. I actually thought I was winning this game, and I was about to do a whole victory speech. But it doesn't take away from the fact that you need to keep... So I didn't know how many drops this deck was running, and I guess I got surprised. But then you kind of have to adapt mid-game, and the opponent obviously did a good job here. So now how can I win this game? I need... Well, the good thing is my opponent can't attack, actually. Okay, well, we're still going here. That's insane. And then next turn I draw Force. My opponent kind of needs to do something now that puts them ahead, or they could be in trouble. Oh, wow. That's so good for me with the no attack and then drawing Force here. This game is crazy. The no attack is very good for me. It's very good to be in a spot where land is close to game over. So let's see. Now is a bad time to cast a spell, because it allows my opponent to hardcast force. I don't really want to force back. With that being said, I am going to do this before my turn. The variance being no land in top 3, but we're also just sitting here waiting for a bad situation potentially, so it's always good to realize that it's risky to do stuff in Magic, but it's certainly risky to not do stuff in Magic as well. My opponent is looking for something that breaks the parity and lets them, you know, attack, which is super reasonable. I'm sad that this looks like... Okay, Bowmaster clearing my guy. I'm going to respond to that with my Brainstorm. With some cards in hand. What is this? Pierce. I have to counter that Pierce and have a land in my top 3. I feel like that's how I'm winning this game. Because otherwise I'm just going to die to this card. I understand. So, Frenzy. So right now, that card is getting killed. And I take 5. Then next turn, that puts me at 7. My opponent now has 7 power. Yeah, I feel like I'm losing now. I feel like I'm losing this game now. Let's see. 7. Go to 6. Yeah, I'm exactly dead, even if I ponder into an Underground Sea and I play a blocker. Sick game. Very sick game. It looks like we have a game 3 in our hands here. There's another Goyf as a blocker. Yeah. Opponent did everything in their power here. 6. And that is exactly enough so that another Goyf blocking that one and I take 6. Darn, what a game. Magic is awesome. So let's see, is this the 3rd Murktide? Yes, it's the 3rd. That's good to know about. I would be pretty sad if time became a factor in this game 3. But it very well could be. Okay, so Murktide Regent killing me there. Dismember doesn't kill either. Should probably have... thinking about no Harbinger in the deck, actually. What do I have here for Murktide? A little bit of Edict, a little bit of Triumph, but maybe actually Daze is the card I'm looking for here on the play. So maybe if I get rid of... Negation is awesome against Beanstalk only, so maybe it's fine to not have those. Bowmasters versus Bowmaster action. Yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. That was an amazing game. I'm happy to have that on camera. So many small things, and thought I was dead. I wasn't dead. Got some more life. So let's see. What do I open with Thoughtseize? Probably. That's the card you want to resolve before the opponent gets a chance to, you know, brainstorm, etc. Okay. So I don't care about Brace, and I don't care. So I'm just going to take the Bowmaster here. So my opponent can double wasteland me, and I'm in trouble. I think that's, you know, acceptable. Nice draw there. So now I can play that card out. If I wanted to sell it, I should have fetched here, but I don't think that's how you should play. So guess I fetch another C here. I'm not too scared of the third wasteland. Play bomb. Attack for 2. I always talk about that as the Kurt Ape, which is really unexciting. Good news is the Brainstorm's growing the Goyf. So is Spell Bomb though. But I should look deeper here. Let's brainstorm. This is when I can't brick on land, I feel like. Then I think I'm losing this game. So, wow. Okay, so my opponent's going to Spell Pierce this one. This is a good call. I like it. I am not going to crack the bomb for just getting in for 1 more damage. I feel like that's not what the game is about. So I guess if my opponent fetches, I'll crack the Spell Bomb reluctantly. But because they have Value and Lauren revealed in hand, then I'm not scared of Murktide. Fatal Push. Yes. Spell Bomb. I guess let's fire off a Spell Bomb, draw. There's a land, great. Not, we play on. This is dangerous. Edge Mace. So now it could get crushed by Bowmaster, but I think that's all right. I think this is where I need to realize that a lot of my hand is quite bad. But maybe I should ponder. Yeah, ponder looks for the land the best. No land. Brick. Pass the turn. Also keeping Brainstorm is good with Tamiyo, so aside from the breaking potential, there's also upside with another card in my hand. So my opponent's hand is Lauren revealed that they're going to use as a draw 3 this game, probably. Days is good against exactly that, which is kind of funny. Well, I think it's time to hit that land. That is a land. Wastelanding doesn't make any sense, so I can develop a Spell Bomb. My opponent goes for a 3-1 end of turn. They set themselves up to get blown out by Bowmaster. They might not have the luxury of thinking about that, though. So Brazen Borer is off the table. We'll get bricked by, you know, the other stuff here. I assume my opponent will jam Elrond Revealed into a Daze here. Daze that is amazing for me. And with 2 cards left, I'll of course fight. Nothing to fight for. Now, sure, I'm taking that damage. I have a Barragoyf on top of my deck, which is atrocious. So now, do I bounce my opponent's Brazen and force it on the way down? That just seems so bad. I think it's gonna be better for me to get this one going. Keep my Wasteland around as a mana source for the clues. And yeah, time being relevant here. I don't exactly love that, but it's part of what can happen. Opponent fetching. Putting a draw 3 on top, I guess. Okay. Should have cracked bomb there. That was not good. Yeah, should have cracked bomb. Ah, sleeping at the wheel here with the time running out, so that's my best. If you crack the bomb there, I feel like you're in very, very good shape. Ah, yeah. Counter that one. And then my opponent's going to draw that card. Yeah, I brought this upon myself. I feel like I'm doing great if I negate my opponent to draw 3 there. But now I'm doing poorly instead. We clear the yard now to cantrip. Draw a bad card. Yeah, bad timing on that. This match was insane. It had everything you want, right? So many, especially game 2, right? When time wasn't an issue and I played a tiny bit better. So here, if I crack, my opponent draws a random card there instead, and I'm in the game to a larger degree. In theory, my opponent could draw bad cards here, and I'm still in the game. So, maybe this is time to just kill that before my opponent has Hardcast online. The timing, Hardcast Force, that is. The timing is bad here if they have their own Bowmaster. They don't, which is huge for me. I think I'm let's see. Beginning with combat. My opponent casts Endurance. Okay, so good play by the opponent. My yard is gone. Then I'm surveilling. And I'm deploying Barrogoyf. Nethergoyf I don't think is interesting right now. Barrogoyf has to turn, and that card will start attacking. My opponent can end step bargain for 4 mana if they have it. Okay, they cut that card. Good call. Endurance getting in there. Feel like I'd block here. Maybe that's not true. Maybe I go to 3, play Murktide. Because then I can actually eat the Endurance. Maybe that's slightly better. I'm not playing around second Endurance. Can't beat Bowmaster. Hardcast Force. Okay. So now if my opponent finds a removal spell, I'm dead. Is that acceptable? I don't think attacking for 1 will change things. Block. Opponent passes. Cast Brainstorm. Put back land. Brainstorm probably. Right? Or land. This shouldn't matter too much. Let's cast this card. Attack. Block with the army. Let's see what we can draw. We knew about that. Let's see, 3 freshies. Nethergoyf is decent. Nethergoyf. So if I do like this, Nethergoyf. 1 removal spell is game over. Maybe this is fine. I'm not sure about this. I'll say that. My opponent casts a removal spell. I bounce the Endurance. Can't remember the top of my deck at this point. Time is too stressful. Spell Bomb. Okay. And I forgot I think my next card is Force of Will, so I didn't have to do this. That was bad timing on my end. Now I'll upkeep this card, pass, or pass priority at least. Wasteland, not a particularly relevant. Well, maybe actually keeping me off 5 mana could be useful for the opponent. Now my opponent's playing to not, you know, playing for time, which is totally fine. Let's see. Need some good help here to get out of this position. That card is not it. So let's see. Kaito. What else? Problem. I guess if I can bounce it with another brace and I can force it on the way back. Orcish Bowmaster is lethal, so let's see. Counter. My opponent has... yeah, I don't know. Just clicking buttons at this point. Have to block here, obviously. Double days. Days really just showing up. In longer games, it's not exactly what you want. Bargain resolving. Now I have to undo here because my opponent could find a draw 3. Oh, I guess I have Bowmaster in play. But I might have to double daze something. Yeah, I should daze with my Surveil here, actually. That card resolves. Play that. Okay. Ponder. Was I supposed to keep that card? I'm not even sure. I think I'm just losing to time here. Yeah. So that was not the best match for content here. So let's see. Or at least the best game for content. So let's see. What my plan here was to ping my opponent, get a blocker, chump block Murktide, then next turn attack with Bowmasters, Ninja, return Bowmasters, stun the Murktide, and then have the tokens jump the Endurance. So I actually think I was in a, you know, somewhat of a playable spot if time wasn't a thing. But yeah, time making content is hard. If I'm not recording, I have a lot more minutes to make my best plays. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I highly enjoyed it. Not the best, you know, not the most optimal finish, but still pretty cool. Obviously my level of narration goes down quite a bit when I have to make fast clicks. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Anyway, I tried hard, but it wasn't quite enough this time. If you want, you can check out the guide on my MetaFi. I would highly appreciate that. And if not, totally fine. I'll see you back more on YouTube for more awesome legacy action before you know it. Thanks so much for watching, guys.